You didn't say a word, you didn't flinch, you didn't break eye contact. You thought you hid it well. But Scorpio already knew. They saw it before you spoke, heard it before you made a sound, felt it before you knew what it meant. Because with Scorpio, it's never about what you say, it's about what you leak. Your eyes betrayed your fear. Your silence screamed your guilt. Your posture whispered your intentions. And your aura, it bled the truth like a wound. There's something ancient inside Scorpio, not just intuition, not just sensitivity, but a radar calibrated by pain, betrayal, rebirth, and soul contracts. They're not guessing, they're not reading body language, they're remembering energy patterns they've survived before. Patterns of liars, of lovers, of manipulators, of the broken, and of the divine. You can dress up your story, craft your persona, polish your words like poetry. But if your vibration doesn't match, Scorpio will notice, not because they want to catch you, but because they can't unsee it. In this video, we're going to explore 10 chilling truths, 10 secrets that Scorpio can see inside you without you ever saying a word. These are not guesses, these are not hunches. These are spiritual fingerprints they were born to recognize. And once you understand what they already know about you, you might realize the moment you stood in front of a Scorpio, you were never truly hidden. Secret 1: Scorpio knows when you're lying, even when you don't realize you are. You didn't shift your eyes, you didn't stutter, you told your story with confidence, maybe even a smile, but something didn't land. And Scorpio felt it like a tremor beneath calm waters. They don't need proof, they don't wait for contradictions. Because when you lie, your body may cooperate, but your energy never does. It's in the micro hesitation before you speak. It's in the sudden stillness that feels too controlled. It's in the pitch of your voice that tightens for a split second, and in the part of your spirit that recoils just a little too far back. Scorpios don't confront lies with anger. They observe, they file it, they wait. Because it's not the lie that matters to them, it's the why behind it. Why did you feel the need to hide the truth? What part of yourself are you protecting or manipulating? And the cruel irony, Scorpio often knows the truth long before you do. A true story. I once knew a woman named Evelyn. Graceful, controlled, polished. She had been dating a Scorpio man, Leo moon, Pisces rising. At dinner one evening, she told him about a friend from work, a casual friendship, she claimed, but her Scorpio. He didn't say a word, he just nodded, gently. The next morning, he ended the relationship. Quietly, calmly, no accusations, no outbursts. Years later, Evelyn admitted to herself, and finally out loud, that her friend was a man she had developed feelings for. She didn't cheat, she didn't cross a line, but in her heart she had already shifted her loyalty. She just hadn't realized it yet. But the Scorpio, he felt it the moment she spoke. Not because she said anything wrong, but because her energy wasn't in the room anymore. Scorpio doesn't just hear your words, they feel where your soul is pulling away. And sometimes you're the last to know you're lying because the lie isn't with your mouth, it's with your alignment. Life lesson: if you find yourself face to face with a Scorpio, remember this. Speak not just to be heard, but to be true. Because with Scorpio, what you say matters far less than what you emit. Your honesty isn't measured by what you admit. It's measured by whether your energy and your words are in sync. And when they're not, Scorpio won't always expose you, but they will never trust you the same way again. Secret 2. Scorpio senses fear even when you're pretending to be confident. You walk into the room, head high, smile intact. You speak with authority. You make eye contact. You tell yourself, I've got this. And for most people that would be enough, but not for Scorpio. Because what you projected as confidence, they felt as panic. What you displayed as control, they sensed as chaos. Scorpios don't judge based on performance. They listen to the vibration behind the voice, and they know the smell of fear, not in your sweat but in your soul. They've felt it before in people about to betray them in lovers, about to leave in friends who smile, while secretly envying them in family who act supportive but hide knives behind polite silence. Fear always leaves an energetic trail. And Scorpio, they follow it straight to its source. A story from the field. There was a man named Darren, a motivational speaker, sharp dresser, charismatic. He met a Scorpio woman, quiet, reserved, observant. She said little during their first meeting, just nodded and smiled. He was charming. He said all the right things. But when he left, she turned to her friend and said, "He's terrified of failure, of rejection, of not being enough. He hides behind his words, but he doesn't believe them himself." 2 months later, Darren's company collapsed. He went silent, disappeared from the speaking circuit. Only then did others realize what she had felt on day one. Scorpio doesn't expose fear to embarrass you. They recognize it because they've lived with it. They understand the war you're fighting within. But here's the twist. If you're not honest about your fear, Scorpio sees it as a mask, and they never trust masks. They would rather you tremble with truth than stand tall on lies. Because to Scorpio, fear isn't weakness, denial is. Life lesson. Confidence is magnetic, but authenticity is unforgettable. When you're with a Scorpio, don't waste energy proving you're strong. Let them see that you're real. Because while others may applaud your performance, Scorpio sees through it and loves the part of you you're still learning to accept. Secret 3. Scorpio knows what you're craving, even if you haven't said it out loud. You didn't tell them you were lonely. You didn't admit you were starving for affection. You didn't say you wanted to be seen, really seen. But Scorpio knew, because the craving was all over you. It wasn't in your words. It was in the pause after someone complimented you, the way your eyes softened when someone said your name with care, the way your energy leaned forward, not physically, but vibrationally, every time the conversation turned toward intimacy, connection, or validation. You didn't say a word, but your longing spoke volumes. And Scorpio, they speak fluent desire. This isn't about sexual craving. It's deeper than that. It's about emotional oxygen, the things your soul begs for when no one's watching. A desire to be chosen without having to ask. A hunger to be safe without having to explain. A thirst to be understood without performing a single version of yourself. A real moment. There was a Scorpio woman, a therapist, who once sat across from a new client. The man was a corporate executive, collected, disciplined, emotionless. He spoke only facts. But she noticed how he laughed half a second too long when she made a joke. She noticed how tightly he held his briefcase as if it were a shield. She noticed how he always paused before saying, "I'm fine." After 3 sessions, she said gently, "You don't want to be heard. You want someone to stay even if you say nothing." The man broke, not from her words, but from the accuracy of her knowing. He later confessed, "You were the first person who ever said the thing I didn't know I needed to hear." This is Scorpio. They don't just sense your surface cravings, attention, praise, validation. They feel the unspoken ache in your spirit. Even when you're surrounded by friends, even when you're smiling, even when you don't know what you're hungry for, they do. They've felt their own emptiness before. That's how they recognize yours. And they also know what someone craves in silence can eventually become the very thing they'll destroy others to get if they're not conscious of it. Life lesson. You don't need to scream to be heard by a Scorpio. You just need to exist. But know this, if you're craving something you're too afraid to name, Scorpio already saw it. And if you're not honest about it, not with them, but with yourself, they'll feel the disconnect and they may begin to withdraw, not out of judgment, but out of protection. Because they know unspoken hunger turns dangerous when it's denied. Secret 4. Scorpio knows who's pretending to like you and who's quietly obsessed with you. In a crowded room, most people rely on body language, eye contact, smiles, handshakes, polite laughter. But Scorpio, they read between the gestures and beneath the smiles. They don't just hear your words, they feel your intentions. And the truth is, you can't fake warmth. not with a Scorpio. They know when someone is pretending to like you because the energy always lags behind the mouth. They'll hear the "I'm so happy for you" but feel the jealousy pulsing underneath. They'll see the hug but sense the stiffness in your aura. They'll notice the friend who always compliments you, yet somehow always adds a backhanded remark right before the conversation ends. And they'll know this person doesn't love you. They want to keep you close, just close enough to monitor. But there's a second layer, and this one is even more dangerous. Scorpio also knows who is quietly obsessed with you, the one who says almost nothing, but whose energy lingers when they walk away. The one who never texts first, but watches every story, every post, every move. The one who speaks softly but stares too long. And Scorpio will never call it out, they'll just watch. A real-world story. There was a Scorpio man, an introvert, highly intelligent. He worked with two colleagues, Sarah and Jake. Sarah was charming, talkative, always offering praise. Jake barely spoke, just nodded, worked hard, kept to himself. But one day the Scorpio leaned in and said to a friend, "Jake is the one to watch. He's been planning to leave and take the client list with him. Sarah just wants to feel needed. But Jake, he's been hiding obsession behind silence." 3 months later, Jake quit and took half the department's clients. The Scorpio wasn't surprised because he didn't listen to what was being said, he listened to what wasn't. Scorpio always knows who's real, who's faking loyalty, who's secretly envious, and who is quietly longing for you even if they'll never admit it. They're not impressed by social masks. They see right through them, not because they're trying to be suspicious, but because they've been the one betrayed by fake smiles before. They've trusted the wrong people once, never again. Life lesson. You can impress a crowd, you can fool a room, but you can't hide energy from someone who was born to see beyond words. With Scorpio, don't pretend to like them. They'll feel it. And don't try to hide your obsession either. They already sensed it and they're watching how you carry it. Secret 5. Scorpio knows when your spirit is tired. Even if you're still smiling, you show up. You smile, you do the work, you say you're fine, and maybe everyone believes you. But not Scorpio. Because to them your energy doesn't lie even when your mouth does. They see it in the way your light flickers, not visibly but energetically. The way your laughter sounds just a touch too rehearsed. The way your eyes hold a pause that's too long to be called casual. The way your presence feels a little hollow. Even if you wear joy like a perfect mask, Scorpio feels the fatigue underneath. Not just the tiredness of the body, but the weariness of a soul that has been carrying too much for too long. So they can feel it. When you're exhausted from always being strong, when you're smiling because you don't know how else to survive, when your silence is no longer peaceful, it's protective. Scorpio knows that kind of silence because they've lived in it. A true story. Quiet pain. Quietly seen. There was a Scorpio nurse named Lisa who worked night shifts at a hospital. Her patient, a woman named Kendra, had survived a car accident and was recovering well. Doctors were optimistic. Nurses were cheerful. Everyone assumed Kendra was strong. She smiled often and joked with the staff. But Lisa noticed something strange. Kendra always took a deep breath before smiling. She always avoided eye contact when people spoke of moving forward. And one night, Lisa sat next to her and softly said, "It's okay to admit that you're tired, even if your body is healing. Sometimes the spirit needs more time." Kendra broke down. That night, she admitted she had been considering giving up, not because of the accident, but because she didn't want to keep pretending to be okay anymore. No one else saw it, but Scorpio did. This is the gift and burden of being born under the sign of Scorpio. They feel what others suppress. They hear what isn't spoken. And they witness the weariness others overlook. They won't always say something, they won't always reach out, but they'll sit beside you quietly with an understanding that says, "You don't have to perform strength for me. I see your soul and I'm not afraid of your darkness." Life lesson. If you're carrying the weight of the world behind a smile and you find yourself in the presence of a Scorpio, know this. They see you, they feel you, and they know that sometimes being fine is the most painful lie of all. You don't have to collapse to be noticed. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to fall apart to be seen. Not with Scorpio. Because they've been in the dark before and they've trained their heart to recognize the souls still hiding there. Secret 6. Scorpio knows when you're emotionally unavailable, even if you act like you care. You text back. You ask how they're doing. You say, "I'm here if you need anything." But to a Scorpio, it doesn't land because your words are present, but your energy never showed up. Scorpio knows when you're physically close, but emotionally distant. They feel it the moment you offer kindness that feels procedural, support that feels scheduled, affection that feels borrowed from someone else's script. You didn't ghost them, but you also didn't arrive. And Scorpio, they don't connect to gestures, they connect to depth. They know what it feels like to sit across from someone who says all the right things, but somehow nothing penetrates. The hug is warm, but the heart isn't open. The conversation is smooth, but the soul behind it is sealed shut. A true story connection with no access. There was a Scorpio man named Jordan. He was dating someone named Melissa, sweet, kind, polite. She never missed a birthday. She always replied on time. She asked about his day, but something was off. Every time Jordan opened up about something real, about trauma, shame, confusion, she would change the subject, laugh nervously, or offer a generic "I'm sorry that happened." It wasn't cruelty, it was emotional absenteeism. And one day, Jordan said something that broke her heart. "You're here, but I've never actually felt you with me." That's what emotional unavailability looks like to a Scorpio. It's the presence of performance, but absence of depth. It's intimacy without investment. It's a hug without surrender. It's a relationship where the door looks open, but the inside is locked from within. And Scorpio always checks the temperature of your spirit, not just the volume of your words. They don't expect perfection, they expect presence. And if you can't show up emotionally, they won't argue, they won't demand, they'll just detach, quietly, permanently, and without needing closure. Because they don't beg for access, they walk away from closed gates. Life lesson. You can't fake depth with someone who was born in the ocean. With Scorpio, show up with your soul or don't come at all. Because they don't need effort. They need honesty of presence. And if you care only with your words but not with your heart, they'll feel the hollowness like wind through an empty room. They won't hate you for it, but they'll never trust you with their truth. Secret 7. Scorpio knows what you're trying to hide from yourself. You pretend you've moved on. You say you're not angry anymore. You joke about your past like it doesn't hurt. You tell yourself you're over it. You even believe it, most days. But Scorpio doesn't. Because while you've hidden your wounds from the world, you've never hidden them from your energy. And Scorpio can feel what your words have learned to avoid. They know when your smile is too polished, when your story is too practiced, when your version of healing is just a beautiful disguise for something still bleeding underneath. Scorpio can see the cracks not because they're looking for them, but because they've lived in the same kind of silence. They know the look of someone who's buried a truth so deeply, they don't even know where to find it anymore. But Scorpio does. A true story. The mirror of the unseen. There was a Scorpio woman named Alina. She met a man, Robert, charismatic, grounded, spiritually evolved. He spoke often about forgiveness, letting go, transcending ego. But every time someone mentioned his ex-wife, his jaw clenched, his tone changed, and his eyes darted away. He said he had forgiven, but his energy told another story. One night, during a long conversation, Alina said gently, "You're not angry with her anymore. You're angry with yourself for still caring." He froze, silent, pale. That night, Robert admitted that he hadn't moved on, not because he still loved his ex, but because he had never forgiven himself for letting her see him at his weakest. That's what Scorpio sees. The pain that's not in your words, but in your posture. The shame that isn't spoken, but radiates in how you flinch at your own name. The truth you've trained yourself to ignore, but which still echoes every time you're alone. Scorpio doesn't call you out, they call your energy. And it's not to shame you, it's to awaken you, to show you the part of yourself you've left behind in the name of survival. Because Scorpio knows anything left buried in the dark eventually starts to rot, and rot turns into patterns, into sabotage, into the very thing that ruins love, friendships, opportunity, and peace. They've seen it, they've lived it, and that's why they feel it in others. Life lesson. You can lie to the world, you can even lie to your own mind, but you can't lie to your soul. And Scorpio, they speak the language of the soul. If they see something in you that you can't face, it's not an invasion, it's a mirror. Because the moment you stop hiding from yourself is the moment everything else in your life begins to transform. Secret 8 Scorpio knows when you're about to break even before you feel it coming. You think you're holding it together. You wake up, go to work, check your phone, make small talk. You're functioning, smiling, still answering, "I'm good, just tired." And maybe you believe it, but Scorpio doesn't. Because while your mind is telling you to keep pushing, your energy is already whispering, something is about to crack. And Scorpio hears it long before you do. They feel the pressure you don't speak about, the weight building in the background, the silent scream that hasn't yet left your chest, but is already echoing in your field. They sense when your soul is standing at the edge of something, a breakdown, a confession, a departure, a storm that even you haven't named yet. They've been there. They know the signs. When you start laughing too loudly at things that aren't funny, when you're overly busy avoiding stillness, when you say it's not that serious too often, when your aura becomes too flat, too faded, too gray, when your words sound normal but your energy has gone quiet. To others, you're fine. To Scorpio, you're a house with cracked foundations, and they can feel the walls shaking before a single brick falls. A story collapsed before the collapse. There was a Scorpio high school teacher named Claire. She had a student, Maya, bright, social, always turning in her work. One day, Maya smiled and said, "Just tired," when asked how she was. Everyone nodded and moved on. But Claire pulled her aside and said, "I know that look. I've worn it too long myself. You're not just tired, you're barely holding it together. And that's okay to say out loud." Maya froze. 2 days later, she admitted she'd been contemplating running away, not to escape home, but to escape herself. No one else saw it coming, but Claire the Scorpio had felt the collapse in the quiet. This is what makes Scorpio both powerful and terrifying. They feel what's about to happen. They sense it in energy, not logic. They see the tear before it becomes a breakdown, the detachment before it becomes a goodbye, the pressure before it becomes an explosion. And they don't panic, they don't run, they watch, they prepare. Sometimes they stay near, not to stop you from breaking, but to remind you that you can survive the fall. Life lesson. The scariest moment isn't when everything falls apart, it's the moments before, when you're still pretending you're okay, but your soul has already begun to fracture. Scorpio will feel that fracture, even in silence, even behind smiles, even before you know it's coming. And maybe, just maybe, they're not in your life to hold you together, but to walk with you through the breaking and into the rebirth. Secret 9. Scorpio knows what you're really afraid of, even when you pretend to be fearless. You talk big, you say you're unbothered, you take risks, you laugh loudly, you even tell others, "I don't fear anything anymore." But Scorpio can already feel it. The one thing you do fear, the one thing you don't speak of, is the very thing silently controlling your life. Scorpio doesn't listen to volume, they listen to frequency. And fear has a frequency low, sharp, hidden beneath bravado. It shows up in the way your voice rises when someone gets too close, in the way you over-explain your independence, in the way you joke about loneliness. a little too often. Scorpio knows the truth. The one who claims to fear no one usually fears rejection the most. The one who pushes people away is usually terrified of being abandoned. The one who flirts with chaos is often running from deep-rooted shame. And the one who always has the answers fears being exposed as not enough. They don't need to ask you. They can feel it like a vibration humming beneath every move you make. A real story, fearless until the mask fell. There was a man named Caleb, a gym owner, ex-military, confident, charming. He dated a Scorpio woman named Dana, soft-spoken, intuitive, watchful. Caleb prided himself on not needing anyone. Said things like, "People always disappoint, so I don't rely on them." Dana never argued. She simply said one night, "That's not strength. That's fear of needing someone who might leave. You don't fear weakness, you fear vulnerability. And so you've built your strength around avoidance, not truth." He went silent for a full minute, then tears. He admitted he hadn't cried in 10 years. Because vulnerability felt like death to him, not because he was tough, but because he was scared of needing love and losing it. Scorpio didn't need to dig, she just knew. Because fear, when repressed, always leaks through the cracks. Scorpio doesn't use your fears against you. They hold space for them if you're willing to own them. But if you perform bravery to hide avoidance, they'll walk away not out of cruelty, but because they know the difference between courage and defense mechanisms. They respect real strength. And real strength is when you can name your fear without letting it own you. Life lesson: pretending you have no fear doesn't make you powerful. It makes you harder to reach. But Scorpio, they already know what you fear. And if they stay near, it's not to expose you, it's to invite you back to yourself. Because fear unspoken becomes fear unconfronted. And fear unconfronted becomes the silent architect of your life. Only when you look fear in the face can you reclaim your power. And no one will ever help you do that more honestly than a Scorpio. Secret 10. Scorpio knows when your soul is asking for transformation, even when your life looks perfect. Your job is stable, your relationship is solid, your health is fine, your calendar is full. People look at you and say, "You've got it all." But Scorpio looks at you and says nothing because they already feel the ache beneath the order. You're not broken, you're not in crisis, you're just disconnected from joy, from meaning, from your soul. And Scorpio senses that your soul is screaming for transformation even when your life looks polished on the outside. Scorpio doesn't need chaos to feel that something's off. They don't wait for drama. They feel the subtle shift when your spirit starts quietly asking, "Is this really it?" They see it in your eyes when you smile, but it doesn't reach. They hear it in your stories when your words sound lived in, but your energy is distant. They feel it in your presence when the structure of your life is solid, but the soul inside it is shrinking. A story. Perfection that concealed a silent death. There was a woman named Eleanor, married, 2 children, house in the suburbs, a successful therapist. From the outside, peace, order, wholeness. She met a Scorpio friend named Micah, an artist intuitive born with the gift of sensing shifts. After a long lunch, Micah looked at her and said, "You're grieving something that never died, but you buried it anyway. Your life is full, but your soul is empty." Eleanor froze. She felt seen in a way that terrified her. 2 months later, she left her practice, took time off, and began painting again, something she hadn't done since she was 17. What she had buried was not a tragedy, it was herself. And only Scorpio saw that she was quietly dying in the safety she had built. Because Scorpio understands this law of the soul, when something no longer grows you, it starts to bury you. And transformation doesn't always begin with suffering. Sometimes it begins with a whisper inside that says, "You weren't born for this version of safety." Scorpio doesn't force you to change. They just hold up the mirror. And the mirror says, "Is this the life you truly came here to live?" They sense when you're out of alignment with your higher path. even when your life gets applause. Because to Scorpio, perfect isn't peace, it's sometimes a spiritual cage. Life lesson. The most dangerous moment in life is not when everything falls apart, but when everything looks fine, and you stop listening to the soul that's begging for more. Scorpio sees when your soul is ready to burn down the comfortable so it can awaken the powerful. And if they love you, they won't try to save the life you've built. They'll help you burn it so you can become the version of yourself you were always meant to be. Conclusion. What Scorpio saw was never meant to hurt you, but to wake you up. You've made it through the 10 truths. Maybe some felt too close. Maybe one felt like a direct hit to your chest. But if you've ever loved or been loved by a Scorpio, then you already know they don't see you to judge you. They see you because they were born to witness what the world overlooks. They notice what you've buried. They feel what you haven't said. They hear what your soul has whispered in your sleep. And while others fall in love with your surface, Scorpio connects with your depth, your shadow, your rawness, your resurrection. That's not just connection, that's spiritual truth. So maybe now you understand why a Scorpio could leave you without warning, not because they didn't care, but because they saw you stop caring about yourself. Or maybe you now realize why they never needed your apology, because they already knew the motive behind your mistake. Or maybe you finally get why you always felt naked around them, not physically, but emotionally. Because a Scorpio soul doesn't just look at you, they look into you, and they remember what they see even if you forget. Your real task now, it's not to fear them, not to perform around them, not to try and hide. It's to ask yourself, what am I hiding from myself? What am I pretending not to feel? What truth is begging to be seen, not by others, but by me? Because the true gift of being seen by a Scorpio is not validation, it's transformation. Scorpio doesn't want your perfection. They want your truth. They want your fire, even if it's messy. They want your soul, even if it's still healing. Because they were never drawn to your mask. They were drawn to the part of you that's still learning how to rise. Final message from Scorpio energy to you. If a Scorpio ever held space for your truth, if they ever stayed quiet when others judged you, if they ever walked away without explanation, know this. They saw you, they felt you, and they loved you enough to let your soul lead, not your ego. Now the question is, can you love yourself the same way, bravely, deeply, without words, just like a Scorpio would? If this resonated with you, tell me in the comments what secret hit you the hardest. Subscribe to the path to Buddha wisdom, because this is only the beginning of what you were born to remember.